On this week's edition of District Directions, we will be joined by Dr. Judy Barber with her focus on learning, Miss Connie Blaney and her district update, and a special behind-the-scene looks at what goes on in our studio. Stay tuned.
Welcome back to our 15th episode of District Directions. I'm Amanda Patterson.
And I'm Lawrence Bothwell. Well, it certainly feels good to be back, so let's get things rolling. And the lady just to do that is Dr. Judy Barber. Dr. Barber is joining us with John Clinton, Jackie Prickett, Donna Brown. So let's listen to hear what they have to say.
Welcome to Focus on Learning. In past shows, you've heard me refer to the high-quality instructors that we have in our district. And I thought it might be interesting for you to get a glimpse of why they're such high quality. So the guests today are Dr. John Clinton, who's the Director of Fine Arts, and Jackie Prickett, who teaches visual arts at Central. John, why don't you start and introduce Jackie as you would introduce her?
I'd be glad to. Thank you. Jackie is among some really wonderful art teachers that we have in the Norman Public Schools. We have at the secondary level 7 art teachers, and they all do such wonderful work, and we're so glad that Jackie is with us. She has been at Central Mid High School for the past 4 years as a visual arts teacher there. Teaches a wide range of students, from those who, like many of us, are scared to death of visual arts.
Right.
And like some of the very fortunate few, feel like that they know exactly what they're doing, that this was something that they were born with and they can work with. That's a very limited number of people, of course, but Jackie works with a lot of students there. She has come to us from lots of different backgrounds, a lot of different experiences that she's had. She was in New Mexico for a while. I know she's had experiences abroad. I know that she has worked also, actually how she came to Norman in the public schools was to work with our special education students.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And so she has a broad range of backgrounds and talents, and even though she probably won't mention this, is a wonderful artist as well.
Oh, in her own self.
Yeah,
Right.
and has done some great things for our schools, has done a lot of graphic work, has done a lot of fine art work, has just done really good work for us.
Jackie, to just get the best glimpse on this, I don't know if we want to do chronological or if we want to do education, but let's start with just your art degree and
Okay.
tell us a little about that, and then I want to go to some other experiences.
Okay, I actually received my fine arts degree here at OU in 1973.
All right. And did you go straight through school? And
No, my sophomore year I spent in Europe.
and how did that come about?
Well, I had a cousin that was an exchange student, and she was in Heidelberg, Germany. And so I, of course, wanted to do what she did.
Of course. Right.
And checked into some programs and found one, and went with one other girl from Wisconsin, and we lived in a Swiss pension, French, I hope I said it all right, with 32 girls, 9 nationalities, and we had to speak French at the table, and I only knew Spanish. But
Yes?
I
You learned French.
learned how to pass better.
Right.
And it was a wonderful experience.
I'll bet it was.
It's on Lake Geneva, and then we took a 3-month URail pass, and she was an art major also, and we would sit on the train and make our lists of everything we had to see. You know, the David, we hit every art museum, I think, in 13 countries that I know of.
Listen, I don't mean to interrupt, but Floyd, but you're a sophomore in college. You were gone for how long?
Almost a year.
Weren't you scared half to death to
Yes,
make
I
that
was
kind of
afraid
leap?
to step off the airplane
And you
onto the ground.
But you made that leap
Yes.
because you just wanted to,
I
or just something
just wanted to, yeah.
you just had to do it.
Yeah.
Had the
Yeah.
need to
What a
do that.
treat.
Well, John, I know that you've been in Europe before too, and so have I. And I know the impact of seeing the real thing and the masterpiece that you've heard about and seen in the book has had on me. In fact, it does become a part of you when you see actually?
It's difficult to describe that. I think the first time that I ever had that feeling was actually in the United States when I went to see the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C.
Right, that's a good example.
I remember not knowing exactly what I was in for and turning around. Now, I'd seen it in pictures and
The
that
Grand
sort of-
Canyon. I
Yeah,
had that
but
experience.
turning around and seeing this huge, overpowering figure. And in Europe, it's virtually every time you turn around,
Right.
there's that history, there's that piece of artwork, there's that piece of architecture that you have read about and seen. Must have
That's
been
really fun. I had a
incredible.
nice experience, and I was in Connecticut, and just, you know, on a lark, bumped into David French's studio, who did the Lincoln Memorial.
Yes.
Didn't know it at the time, but it's so much fun to see all those things. And I can imagine the impact it had on you as a sophomore in college.
It's like yesterday, even though it was 20, I don't know how many years ago. Because especially I think art people, well, most people, but especially art people, are so visual.
Yes.
It makes it so much easier for me to bring in art history because I get so excited because I've really seen the blue period of Picasso in Barcelona, and all of that I try to get across to the students is so much easier, and I get excited about it because it's not like opening a book. Yeah, that looks pretty. You know.
On page 23, we have, it's
I-
really, you
I-
have the stories to tell with it. Okay, so you were in Geneva and throughout Europe going to museums. Did you also take classes?
It was correspondence. I got 30 hours in art. Most of my art hours came from there, actually, undergraduate. And we had to keep a sketchbook, and we had to mail back and forth. And then we also lived in other places. That we had relatives or friends or missionaries. And I mentioned we were in Florence, Italy for a couple of weeks, and they had a thing like we might call not Votech, a community college in Oxford.
Yes.
And so we decided to take a class in Italian mosaics. And we had to build our own box and really do it just like they did there. Of course, then we were disappointed. We realized how heavy they were, and there was no way we were going to get them back.
Many lira to get to
But we learned. It was, you know, wonderful.
So as you got the assignments and projects, then you could be on location, quote, quote, with where the masterpieces are to look to see.
And
Pretty
we had
strong
to
impact.
write a lot of art history and send back. And
Then, besides the European influence and the masterpieces, you've spent time in the Southwest, have you not?
yes.
Okay, tell us a little about that.
When I graduated from OU, I taught in a 4-year high school, U.S. Grant, where I student taught, for 4 years. During that time, I got married, and my husband started working for the Bureau of Land Management and as a wilderness specialist in New Mexico. So, of course, we jumped at the chance to move there. And that was another wonderful experience. We worked with Navajo children. I taught in Socorro. We lived in a little village, Magdalena. And my students there, that was middle school experience. And my students there were Navajo, Hispanic, of course, and it was not too far from White Sands, and it also is near the very large array, which it looks like, what am I trying to say?
It's like a deep valley.
2001, there's like
Oh, okay,
right,
28
space, right.
huge telescopes out in it.
Oh, of course.
You know
of
what I'm
course,
talking
yes,
about.
the scientific area,
Anyway,
yes.
so we had scientists coming from literally all over the world all the
Yes.
time for sabbaticals. So I had students from India, from everywhere, hydrologists,
Wonderful.
people. And so that was quite,
Really a strong impact.
yeah, to teach art to those 3 different cultures all at the same time.
a
And
treat.
it's
One
a
of the-
small college town. So that
One of
was
the
fun.
things that's going through my mind is that, you know, when you're following an artist's career and you don't know what's gone on in their life and you see a real change in their artwork, and I'm thinking about Matisse or then you find out that they've traveled somewhere else and the impact of that culture. So the variety of
Again.
cultures with which you've dealt, I'm sure, makes a huge difference in your ability to help kids do different things.
I hope so. I think so.
I think it must do, especially Norman is such a culturally diverse city.
Right.
And so if you have that experience in Santa Fe, and you've worked with those different cultures, and you look at them as different cultures, but not necessarily as different people,
Right.
then you can bring that into Norman. What a real treat for our students to be able to have
We
that.
really are fortunate, Norman, to have the quality of instructors
Yes.
that we have, and you certainly are one of them. I'll tell you what I'd like to do, if you wouldn't mind. I'd like for you to come back on another show and bring some of the students' artwork,
Okay.
and let's look at it and talk about the education students get through visual arts,
Okay.
not only in visual arts but in thinking skills and problem solving, and the impact that it has on students that are in your classroom and throughout
Okay.
the school. Would you mind doing that?
All right.
All right.
Be great.
Thank you all very much for
Thank you.
joining me, and thank you to the audience for joining us on Focus on Learning.
Thank you, Dr. Barber. Now let's see what the Board of Educations have been up to since we've been gone. Here's Mrs. Connie Blaney with a district update.
Oh, grab.
Good evening. The State Department of Education has approved the district's request for 2 one-half days for in-service for the employees of Norman schools. The dates for the school improvement exemptions are February 28th and April 11th. There will be no school for the students in the afternoons on these 2 dates. A sack lunch will be available for the students. Transportation will be provided during the lunch hour. Parents with small children will need to provide afternoon care for their children. The YMCA is planning on providing activities for students at the Y. More details on exact ending times for the school sites will be announced in a later update. These 2 half-days of in-service were not scheduled on the regular school calendar this year because they were just recently approved by the State Department of Education. However, it has been planned by the Personnel Transition Committee to set time aside this year for the new staffs for the 97-98 school year to meet at their new sites, get acquainted with their co-workers, and plan for next year. These 2 dates were just recently approved. Monday, January 27th, the board listened to the Citizens Advisory Council's recommendations regarding the district's transfer policy. The final decisions on next year's transfer policy will be made by the school board at the following month's meeting, which will be held on February 24th. Every 2 weeks, employees are getting an update about the transition through the Transition Update newsletter. If employees have questions about the transition, they are welcome to send a question to me for the newsletter. I will be glad to get the answer and publish it in the update newsletter. Send the question through the Interschool Mail to the Public Relations Office in the Administrative Services Center. A banner hosted by the Norman Chamber of Commerce, which says Norman Chamber Salutes Our Schools, is traveling from school to school in the district for the rest of the school year. We appreciate the continued support from the Business Education Committee of the Chamber. If any business person is interested in getting his or her business involved in the Norman Public Schools Partner in Education program, please contact the school site or my office at 366-5961. We thank the businesses who are already involved as partners in our schools. We want to remind all of our patrons to vote in the Norman Public Schools millage and bond election, which is set for Tuesday, February 11th, from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. at the regular polling places. This millage election is very important to our children. We must have all of our millages passed to operate the school district. This election is required by law each year and must be voted by the patrons of the local school district. We are also holding our 1997 bond election, which usually takes place in October, at the same time as this millage election. This means we will not have a bond issue in October. Having the bond issue in February will allow us to get bond funds earlier and finish construction projects needed this summer. This bond election is not predicted to raise taxes since we are paying off or retiring bonds as these new bonds issues are passed. Every parent will receive a newsletter about the millage and bond election the week before the election. Secondary parents will receive it in their mailbox about February 6th or 7th. Elementary parents will receive the newsletter in their child's Thursday folder on February 6th. If you have any questions about projects or costs, please feel free to call my office at 366-5961. Our next school board meeting is on Monday, February 24th at 7 p.m. in the Administrative Services Center. The public is invited to attend. For Norman Public Schools, I'm Connie Blaney.
Thank you, Ms. Blaney. And finally, the minute we've all been waiting for, we get to see a look at the behind scenes of our studio and what goes on.
Well, this next clip was created to improve public relations in our district and to give all district personnel a glimpse as to what goes on in all our media classes here at Norman High. Let's take a look-see.
Welcome to the Video Resources Studio and to the school channel of the Norman Public Schools. I'm Gary Kramer. I'm the director of the studio, and I'm part of a staff that produces more than 4 hours of original television programming each week and teaches 11 sections of television production at Norman High each week. Our facility is open from 7:30 to 9 each weekday and for more than 12 hours on the weekends to allow our students access to the equipment and the facilities they need to accomplish their goals for class and for the school channel. The operation is part of the Norman Public Schools and receives some technical and financial support from the local cable company. It's taken us a long time to reach this point. Our current students have had the school channel all of their lives. We have become part of the fabric of the Norman community, bringing the schools into the homes of more than 20,000 cable subscribers in Norman. I've been involved with the television production efforts of the schools since Norman High School's first video project almost 20 years ago. In 1978, some high school student volunteers and I began working on a video supplement to a set of middle school art textbooks. The project was called Partners with Art. It was shot in the Community Access Production Studio of the cable company. We wrote, designed, and rehearsed the show at school. The cable company provided staff and training for the production at the studio. The project, or rather the process of producing a television show, was so popular with the students that the following year, Norman High School offered a television production class in its curriculum. The class was taught with no equipment and no facilities on site. It was run like a speech class, with students planning, preparing for, and rehearsing the show at school, and then going to the Community Access Studio once a week to shoot. In those days, everything was done live on tape. There were no camcorders, there were no videotape editors. The program the students produced, Tiger Den, was aired by the cable company on an access channel reserved for use by the schools. The only other programming on the school's access channel were Norman High School Tiger home football games. The games, too, were produced by student crews under the supervision of cable company personnel and using the cable company's mobile studio and equipment. Well, not surprisingly, the first video production equipment owned by the schools was purchased by the athletic department. A set of 3/4-inch editors allowed the coaches to prepare game highlights for analysis by the team and for presentation on the school channel. For more than 5 years, this production routine continued until the Video Resources Studio was opened on the campus of Norman High in 1983. The studio was a collaboration among 3 agencies. The school system provided the space, the cable company provided the cameras and switching equipment, and the City of Norman contributed the lights and editing equipment. All 3 agencies shared the facility, and all 3 began producing programs for their respective cable access channels. From the very beginning, the Video Resources Studio has been a learning laboratory for Norman students. Over the years, the original partners have abandoned the studio to the exclusive use of the school system. With more time available for students, the instructional program grew until in 1995, a total of 12 sections of television production were offered at Norman High School. As the number of students increased, so did the number of programs on the school channel. We have gone from Tiger Den to the production of 8 weekly series for the school channel, in addition to sports and program coverage produced on-site by the schools. An average of 6 hours of original programming are produced by the media students and the studio staff each week. We have a saying at the studio: we teach television. We don't use television to teach. The programming we produce for Cable 29 is intended for viewing by the community and is therefore a component of the public relations, public information ventures of the school system. Teachers and students who want to incorporate video production into regular classrooms use equipment and expertise provided by the school library. Our efforts are devoted to the school channel. Each of the series on the school channel is targeted toward a specific audience in the community, and each series has a slightly different format and production routine. Good Company is produced by an ensemble cast of high school students who are selected through audition to represent elementary schools in Norman. The Good Company cast report on elementary activities, promote healthy, balanced lifestyles for elementary students. And our local superhero and champion of excellence for the Norman Public Schools, Norman, is part of the Good Company format. Secondary school activities are addressed on Homeroom, another program produced by an audition cast of high school students. District Directions is targeted to teachers and patrons of the school system and features segments produced by volunteers from the district, including the Director of Public Relations, the Assistant Superintendent, the Director of Instruction, the Teacher of the Year, and the President of the Teachers Organization. Capital Ideas is another show produced by a volunteer, this time a social studies teacher from Central Mid-High. Each week, Sandy Bayhan brings a cast and crew of mid-high students to the studio to talk with an area legislator or policymaker. Deja Vu takes advantage of the history of the school channel by offering flashback segments from 18 years of programming. It is produced by studio staff and features student and staff hosts. Two series are produced by high school students. Tiger Den presents news and information about the Tigers and takes viewers on campus for a look at life at Norman High. Medium Well features performers and personalities from NHS, as well as some original taped features that take a look at the community from a student's perspective. The staff includes a sports producer, who, along with student volunteers, gives a weekly update of district sports action on Been There, Done That. In addition to producing the weekly series for the school channel, the staff of the studio is also involved in the annual production of special video projects for the district. Those projects may include promotional videos about the school system as a whole, or individual schools within the district. Videos that are part of the Celebration of Teaching banquet and the naming of the Norman Teacher of the Year. Videos that commemorate and celebrate the careers of retiring teachers and staff. Or videos that are part of seasonal celebrations or special events that involve the entire district. Most of the special event videos are produced by the studio staff, and the studio employs a staff of 8, half of which are work-study students from the University of Oklahoma. The program has long since outgrown the facility. Media productions classes meet in traditional and modified classrooms in school. When Norman High School North opens next fall, it too will have television production classes that meet and work in specially modified classrooms to produce cable programs about the school. With classes meeting and production taking place outside the facility, the Video Resources Studio will continue to be the point of origination and distribution of programming for the school channel. It will continue to maintain the 24-hour district bulletin board. It will continue to circulate the videos that are part of the 1,000-title video library maintained by the district and the Oklahoma Video Consortium. It will continue to publish a monthly newsletter promoting and providing information about the school channel and the studio's service to the district. And it will continue its mission to utilize television production technologies to support the instructional and informational programs of the Norman Public Schools. I'm Gary Kramer. Thank you for your interest in the school channel and the Video Resources Studio.
Well, that's all the time we have for this week's edition of District Directions, so it's been real. So for Amanda Patterson, I'm Lawrence Bothwell. Have a good night.
Good night.